It gives me immense pleasure to invite Dr. Nithya Gogtay Madam in this symposia as a speaker, early phase clinical drug development, and Madam will be speaking when and how to start. Dr. Nithya Gogtay is well known for her outstanding contribution in the field of clinical pharmacology as an academician, and she is source of we can say the source of inspiration for many young clinical pharmacologists in discipline. So I request Madam Nithya Gogtay to start the presentation. Please, Madam.
Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers for having given me an opportunity to be here today and speak to you. My sincere apologies that I'm sending a recorded talk as well as I'm not able to be there in person, but I have not been able to control the circumstances, so my sincere apologies. Let me begin with this phase 1 unit that we have at our department. This is a 3-bedded phase 1 unit at the Department of Clinical Pharmacology, supported by the Central Drug Research Institute CDRI Lucknow, as well as the BMC, the Bombay Municipal Corporation. Once you enter this unit, what you will see is an emergency cart here. There is a defibrillator, there is a multi-param monitor, an ECG machine, and so on and so forth. The proudest moment for our phase 1 unit came on the 10th of February 2017, when the then ICMR Director General, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, visited us. Yeah? So the question that I've asked myself often over the years is, was it always like this? And the answer is obviously no. It's taken a lot of effort to reach here. So what I'm going to talk to you over the next maybe 12 or 13 minutes is early phase clinical drug development. How do you start it? How do you go about setting up a unit? And also a SWOT analysis and some personal perspectives on this. I'll also like to have a disclaimer and conflict of interest. The views expressed in this particular presentation are my personal opinions and not intended to disparage any organization or individual. They're also not the views of the institution that I work for, and my spouse works for Cipla Limited. This is going to be the outline of my presentation. I'm going to talk about the importance of vision and visionaries. Why a little bit of luck and destiny plays some role in all of this. What is the role of the pharmaceutical industry? What is the role of the government of India? What is the importance of people who are within and without? What is the importance of risk, failure, and a Tamil word called Thoril, which I'll come to towards the end of the presentation. And I'll end with a SWOT analysis, some personal perspectives, and a summary of the presentation. This graph sort of tells you how the Department of Clinical Pharmacology has evolved over the years. But it was in the mid and the late 80s that the Central Drug Research Institute established a CDRI unit at the Department of Clinical Pharmacology. So the first thing I think is in early clinical development is you need to have a vision. And this was a vision of the Government of India right in the mid and the late 80s to set up a drug development unit at a public sector hospital. What's even more interesting is I came by a document, a memorandum of understanding signed by the chairman of Cipla, Dr. Hamid, with the then Bombay Municipal Corporation, and Cipla actually supported, along with CDRI, several beds in the clinical pharmacology unit for a long time, and this clinical pharmacology unit was then under the Department of Pharmacology. The vision is always by visionaries, right? So you have Professor U.K. Sheth, the father of clinical pharmacology in India. You have Dr. Nilimak Shirsagar, who founded the department on the 1st of June 1995, and Dr. Urmila Thatte, who actually established the 3-bedded phase 1 unit that I showed you images of. And this is the legacy of these visionaries, the pioneers, and this is what they have left behind for the institute, and this is what they have left behind for the country. The second or the third thing here is also about being in the right place at the right time, and I'll tell you a little bit of our story on infectious diseases. This is a peripheral smear showing you gametocytes of Plasmodium falciparum malaria, and this was in the early 90s where we had multi-drug resistant Plasmodium falciparum in the city of Bombay. And we set up a small malaria OPD wherein the peripheral smears, and I used to see it at that time personally, would be reported within 30 minutes so that treatment could be initiated at the earliest and prevent morbidity and mortality. This led us to establish chloroquine levels, and we actually published a short report on Vivax malaria being resistant to chloroquine. What happened after these publications was that Novartis came to us with an early phase clinical trial on coartemate. I think this was a proof of concept study. Coartem versus chloroquine in the management of Plasmodium falciparum malaria, and in quick succession, in the late 90s, you had the World Health Organization who entrusted us with this study in Sevagram and Vardha, comparing diethylcarbamazine plus diethylcarbamazine plus albendazole for the management of filariasis. And this is an image, I think, from 1997 or 1998, where this is our work in the middle of the night trying to collect peripheral smear for the filarial parasite. And I think it's the best years or the happiest years of my life. What's important here, and that's the fourth thing about drug development, you need the pharmaceutical industry. So it's the pharmaceutical industry that brings these molecules to you, and they also bring in the funding support. And I am indebted to all of these people listed on this particular slide, and especially the Serum Institute of India, who've been with us for the past, I think, 14 years with the drug development of a rabies monoclonal antibody. So what the pharmaceutical industry funding allowed us to do is to set up a pharmacy. You have refrigerators, we have 24-hour power backup, deep freezers, we have a pharmacokinetics lab today, we have a biochemistry lab, all of which would have been very, very difficult had we relied entirely on the Bombay Municipal Corporation for funding, right? If you look at the growth of the department subsequently from the 2000 onwards, you can see multiple times ICMR mentioned, Indian Council of Medical Research Advanced Center for PKPD of anti-infection, Advanced Center for Product Development. Then you can see the Department of Biotechnology Clinical Research Training Center, or the Pharmacovigilance Program for the Government of India. So what's the take home from here for drug development? The pharmaceutical industry will leave you after the completion of the projects. So if you have to sustain whatever you have built, you need the help of your institute and you need the help of the Government of India. And today I'd like to place on record, and we owe a debt of gratitude to the Indian Council of Medical Research, the Department of Biotechnology, DSD, Ayush, and many others listed here, the Johns Hopkins or the WHO, all of whom have helped us to sustain whatever we have built over the years. So industry funding, government funding, and of course your institute support, all of which is very, very important to take the vision forward. The next thing, and I think the most logical thing, is the people that you work with. Now I've classified this as people without and people within. When I say without, these are people who are outside my own department. So whether it's the medicine department or the pediatrics department, or more recently the hematology department with whom we have been working, these are extremely crucial in the success of your vision, right? And of course you have people like from organizations like the Bombay College of Pharmacy or the IIT Bombay or the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, all of whom help you to sustain your vision. They grow with you and you grow with them. And then of course you have people from within your own staff who stay with you for several years, and you can see that I have a staff largely of women whom I trust always much more. The next thing about, I think, early clinical development is the willingness and the readiness to take risks and the readiness to fail. Now this is an ECG of a patient of an early clinical trial which we did in 1999 for a pharmaceutical industry, one particular company. This was a parenteral fluoroquinolone, and we had continuous or serial ECG monitorings at that time. And one of the things that we saw early on was these ectopic beats. Now, we did not see these ectopic beats prior to initiation of this treatment. We had ectopic beats later. The pharma company eventually abandoned the trial, but the willingness to take risks and the willingness to fail is an important aspect of early phase clinical development. This is something that I learned very early on in this. Now finally, I mentioned right in the beginning about this Tamil bird called Thurin. Last year on my birthday, my father gifted me this book called as Incarnations by Sunil Khilnani, It's the most wonderful book, and I strongly urge all of you to buy it. This is the photograph of M.S. Subbulakshmi, right? Now, M.S. Subbulakshmi uses the word Toril in this particular, chapter, which was written by Sunil Kilnani. Toril in Tamil actually means job, work. So early phase drug development is your job or your work. But one of the very interesting things which was written by Sunil Kilnani in that particular book is that M.S. Subbulakshmi would actually have 3 formal rehearsals with her orchestra before she actually went on to the stage, because he asked her this question, how come your concerts are so successful? And she said that I don't regard my, this is what I do, it's my dharma, it's not just my duty. So I think as a nation, we also need to think about early phase drug development as not just something that we do, but something that needs to be done, something which is our dharma. So I like this use of the word Toril in this particular book in the context of M.S. Subbulakshmi's own efforts to bring music to center stage and of course the rest of the world. Coming to a SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Being in a medical institute is, I think, the greatest strength that we have. We are in a public sector institute. It also lends you the greatest opportunity to do these studies, right? So we have, for example, a study which we are doing, a phase 1 study on a rheumatoid arthritis molecule. So having a rheumatoid arthritis OPD from where you can actually take patients and a most wonderful collaborator from the Department of Medicine, to my mind, is the greatest strength that I have today and an opportunity to do this phase 1 trial. However, being in a medical institute where patient care always takes priority over research will remain its greatest weakness and threat. So for example, if I apply for a high performance liquid chromatography, because I'm from a pre or a paraclinical department, the clinical department, say some other equipment, will always have greater priority than my own equipment. So I think this public sector institute gives you strengths and opportunities, but we also need to be mindful of the weaknesses and the threats that it can pose for both drug development and research. So coming to the end of my presentation, do we have the vision today to do early phase drug development? Absolutely yes. And the Indian Council of Medical Research is now set to develop centers for phase 1 clinical trials all across India. And I think this is something that will be rolled out very soon. The next question that we need to answer is, do we have molecules? And the answer is yes. And just to give you an example of Cipla, they invested in stem cell research in 2020, formed a strategic alliance with Stempeutics Research, and the molecule is now out in the market. And they also have invested in Chase Pharmaceuticals, an early stage US-based developing country for studies in Alzheimer's disease. Now this particular, the screenshot that I've put is of a wonderful article freely available on the internet written by Deferding et al. So I'd recommend all of you go through this whenever you have the time, because it beautifully outlines all that the Indian pharma are doing for early phase drug development in this country. And of course you have the Department of Biotechnology funded supported CAR T cell therapy studies for which were conducted at ACTRIC in the Tata Memorial Hospital, right? So we have the molecules and we have the vision. So finally, what is it that we need to succeed in this country? I think to succeed in this country, all of us, all stakeholders, need to borrow this ACPICon acronym. A, we need the right attitude. C, we need the courage of conviction. P, we need patience, we need to persevere. I, we need intelligent effort. C, again, we must have the courage to take risks and we must have the courage to fail. O, we need organizational might, be it infrastructural, be it in terms of molecules, be it in terms of funding. And this comes from both the government as well as the industry. And finally, N, I think we need to answer the question, what is it that this country really needs in terms of drug development? And once we put all this together in ACPICon, I think we would have done a great job for this country. Once again, I thank the organizers most sincerely for giving me this opportunity, and apologies for not being there in person. Thank you very much.
So we express sincere thanks to Dr. Nithya Gogtay Madam for her informative, inspiring and lucid presentation in this symposium. Thank you. Any?
Actually, as she was on recorded speech, so she is not here, but definitely we can have discussion on it. So if anybody has any questions or suggestions, please. Okay. So, I have one suggestion here regarding the early phase clinical trials. So, is it possible after the invitation of ICMR regarding opening of phase 1 clinical trial centers in different states, so is it possible in our state also? Can you think of it maybe from the government or maybe from the private organizations? Is it possible to set up one phase 1 clinical trial center?
Why not? Then this is a national platform, so it is possible for any state for that matter. ICMR has asked for, invited the application, and you should have the confidence to at least make an application, and then the expert group, they will see if the application is otherwise acceptable, they will provide the funding support, etc. But for that also you need primarily you should have the space, you should have the motivation at the local level and the confidence that you will be going ahead and implementing the project properly. Then why not?
And for that, I think the last 2 points was very important. The willingness to fail. If that is in our willingness, then only we can go. So, but that willingness should come from the private organizations. So, whenever this symposium is going on in the private organization, so I request, basically, I don't know if
I know that Tata PNC Kolkata is also planning. They have applied for some, not for this project only. They are trying to do phase 1 clinical trials in Kerala. They are doing number of clinical trials, especially in the GI areas, and they are also trying to do this phase 1 clinical trials. Because they are a very good center, they can do it. They are very good.
Yesterday we had a discussion regarding this in Patna, and there also the same question raised. But as of now, there is no such, even in a whole of country.
Actually, government sector is a very difficult. I have done through this brochure and application advertisement, but because you need to develop at least some infrastructure for getting this application approved. Otherwise, out of nothing, if you apply, there is 100% chance that your application will be failed.
So here we conclude the session. Thank you very much. So, may I request Professor Tripathi sir to please felicitate
Our respected chairperson, Professor S.M. Nasser sir. Also may I request Dr. Manjunath Nookala. May I request also Professor Dhaneria sir to join, please, to felicitate Manjunath Nookala. Sir, we will felicitate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Next we move on to the inauguration ceremony. So for the same, I would at the outset I would like to invite Professor Santanu Tripathi sir. It is an honor to invite you sir onto the stage. Next, Professor Tripathi sir is the president of ACPI and also the organizing chairperson for this conference. Next, I would like to invite Professor Melvin George sir, who is the Secretary of the Association of Clinical Pharmacologists of India. It is my honor to invite the distinguished physician and professor of professors in clinical medicine, Professor Sukumar Mukherjee sir. Okay. Next, I would like to invite Professor Jyotirmoy Pal sir. Sir, here. Yes. So he is the Dean of the Indian College of Physicians and also the President-elect of the Association of Physicians of India 2023-24. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Arup Chattopadhyay sir, who is the Deputy Drug Controller and Chief of CDSCO E-Zone. Next, it is my pleasure to invite Major Dr. Abhijit Chakravarti, who is the Group Medical Director of Medica Super Speciality Hospital, who are the academic collaborators for this conference. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Satyavrata Acharya sir, who is the ex-professor and head, Department of Pharmacology, BHU. I would like to request somebody to escort him to the dais. It is an honor to have you among us, sir. Last but not the least, I would like to invite Dr. Shambhu Shamrat Samajdar, who is the organizing secretary of ACPICon2023, to take his seat in the dais. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Tonushri Mondo to please felicitate the distinguished members on the dais. I would like to we'll first begin with the felicitation of Dr. Santanu Tripathi sir. So as a token of gratitude, we will be felicitating sir with a pot plant. Please welcome Professor Sukumar Mukherjee sir onto the stage. A round of applause, please. Please give us a moment while we arrange the... Next, I would request Dr. Tanushree to felicitate Professor Melvin George sir, with the Victoria and a potted plant. Next, I invite Dr. Tanushree to felicitate Professor Shukumar Mukherjee sir with a Uttorio and a potted plant. Next, we move on to the felicitation of Professor Jyotirmoy Pal sir. Here we have Tanushree handing over a potted plant to sir. Next, I would request Tanushree to felicitate Dr. Urup Chattopadhyay sir. We now move on to the felicitation of Dr. Satyavrata Acharya sir. Of Tanushree, felicitating sir. I request Tanushree to felicitate Major Dr. Abhijit Chakravarti sir. And finally, I would like her to felicitate Dr. Samajda. To felicitate Tripathi sir with the Uttorio. अच्छा एक बार दिए थोड़ा. And finally, we move on to the felicitation of Dr. Felicitation of Dr. Samajda. Thank you, Dr. Tanushree. We shall now move on to the lighting of the ceremonial lamp. So I request all our distinguished members on the dais to light the ceremonial lamp and formally inaugurate the conference.
It's a privilege and a very pleasant duty to be here on this stage and to make everybody know about the purpose of this organization, that is ACPI, Association of Clinical Pharmacologists of India. The number of trained clinical pharmacologists in the country are not too many. It's a small group, but its significance is not really small, and we understand that the visibility of this super specialty discipline is not up to the mark yet as desired, but that doesn't in any way belittle the relevance of this particular discipline in terms of its potential to extend support to patient care, at the same time development of newer drugs. We have huge areas of our work, whether or not it is very categorically proclaimed that it is members of this discipline, they are contributing up till now. But then we have decided that it is time that we also try to be recognized. And with this view, although the discipline has actually made its journey in late 70s for that matter, so 22 years on that side and 23 years this side, so almost 44 years plus that this discipline is existing, but it is only last year that we felt that we need to have an association, professional society. And we are now, this is the second year that we have met. We are very few people in this hall, but there are a few more people online with their online presence. I must thank this organization where we are standing now, Medical Super Speciality Hospital, that they have been so generous. Thank you, Mr. Ganguly and Mr. Lahiri and Dr. Chakraborty, that you have, with your indulgence and with your support, with your kindness, that we got this opportunity to assemble here. We have started our program since early this morning, and we will be having programs tomorrow and day after. All through since morning, we are actually deliberating on how we can make our presence felt in the society, and more precisely in the area of healthcare and medical services. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. And we are fortunate in this evening, we have stalwarts. I have my direct teacher sitting there, Professor S.B. Acharya, who was my teacher in pharmacology when I was doing my MD pharmacology. I am fortunate that on the legendary practitioner of medicine in the country now, a very, very senior practitioner, Professor Sukumar Mukherjee, who is a legend in the area of medical teaching, education also, has spared his time at a very, very short notice, and he has made it, and he has come. We are really, really thankful, sir, grateful to you. I am fortunate that Dr. Jyotirmoy Pal, my younger colleague, but very important now in the field of medicine in the country, very important person in the association.
It's indeed a privilege to stand before you on this occasion of the second national conference of the ACPI. Firstly, I think we should congratulate the organizing team led by Dr. Shambho for this massive effort he has taken the last 1 month to pull in so many things and to make this event happen in Calcutta. And let's give a big round of applause to Dr. Shambho and team for pulling this off this weekend. We all know that clinical pharmacologists are doing amazing work silently in different parts of the country, be it in regulations, be it in academics, be it in research. A lot of people are working in the research domain, and there are a lot of people, particularly in the state of West Bengal, who are into improvising patient therapeutics, and that is something that is coming up of late, and I'm sure this discipline also will grow in a big way in the coming days. And it is so important that even as the subject grows and we try to understand how best we can do in our own specialty, it is also important that we as seniors should give to the upcoming generation, and that is how a society can grow. The point I'm trying to make here is that ACPI can grow only if we all join together and work together for it. It cannot stand by itself. There was a lot of discussion in the previous session about clinical pharmacology and the way forward. I just wanted to say one thing, that a discipline of clinical pharmacology is definitely a passport, an entry ticket to reach somewhere, to reach a good reputable organization. But finally, it is what we do with it that matters in the years ahead. And that comes only by our own initiative, our own hard work, our own efforts that we take to see that whichever stream of clinical pharmacology that we choose, we go in, we dwell into it and become masters of it, because no one can be a master of every discipline, subset of clinical pharmacology. We have to identify what is our niche area and become a master of it, so that the world recognizes that you are a master of that particular field of clinical pharmacology. So I'm sure that in the days ahead, this organization will grow in leaps and bounds, and that will happen only with the efforts that come from all of us. So I wish all of us a big success in that, and once again want to thank Super Specialty Hospital Medica here, the team organizing the management of this hospital for graciously giving us the space to do this event. And I would also like to thank all the members who have come from different parts of the country as well as the state of Calcutta, West Bengal, to be a part of this event. And special thanks to all the dignitaries on the dais to come and bless us with their presence and graciously being part of this event. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Next, I invite Professor Shubhamar Mukherjee, sir, to kindly speak a few words.
Good evening, Mr. President, Professor Santanu Tripathi, dignitaries on the dais, colleagues and friends from the discipline of clinical pharmacology and therapeutics. It gives me enormous pleasure and privilege to be here to share some of the observations as a clinician, where we are benefited by your contribution. Second annual conference is scheduled here. That is a great news, and I thank Dr. Tripathi and his associates for organizing this conference in a new building in the medical hospital. Clinical pharmacology and therapeutics has made a phenomenal progress since 1960, when I was a student of medical college. At that time, we are only taught how to make pills, how to make mixtures, and basic knowledge of pharmacology. I do not hesitate to say most of the theoretical classes were boring. In practice, in practical laboratory, we had to go all through this as a student of medical college, through this. But since that time, over 50 years, I think we have made real advancement in clinical pharmacology and therapeutics. At that time, the pharmacology is a subject which is being examined in third year class in the university examination. But now you have got the association, you have got very distinguished professors, very distinguished research workers, and whole-time workers in the field of clinical pharmacology and therapeutics. Pioneers of clinical pharmacology and therapeutics have major contribution from the science of pharmacology with a newer molecule acting on human biology, which is all the more complicated, with restorative effects, what we achieve in clinical practice without possible damage. In spite of that, we face adverse reaction. In spite of that, we cannot predict adverse reaction. And in clinical practice is a question of if and but. And in that case, that we do not know I can quote an example. About a week's back, a patient came to me with hypertension, diabetes, obesity, but in addition there had been large prostate. And he has been prescribed usual drug for the prostate. After using the prostate, the patient came to me and he told me, "Doctor, I have become completely dry. And all these prostatic drugs for the prostate, I looked in the literature on the spot and I find in 17% cases there is a ejaculation failure, which was new to me because we are having so many prescriptions over a period of years. We never faced a problem. But still it does happen. We cannot have any prediction of any side effects. Another case we have faced with NSAIDs coming out, the toxic epidermal necrolysis with a life-threatening situation. So adverse effect is one of our nightmares, and we cannot predict beforehand, for which we need pharmacogenomics. And pharmacogenomics is a subject which can help us to go for a precision in medicine, a personalized medicine, and that is what we are thinking of. All these new avenues in clinical pharmacology and therapeutics, like pharmacoepidemiology, pharmacovigilance, pharmacogenetics, are important assets in clinical practice. If we can have those things in the armory of practice of a clinician, I think the patient will be benefited. With the advance of genome sequencing, many parts of the world have got. This is one of the important steps to achieve personalized medicine. Still I can say we don't have that facilities in the city of Calcutta. I think we have got active Professor Jyotirmoy Pal. So pharmacogenomics, one of the important ladders to achieve more perfection in our clinical practice. All the time you have seen many a time economics of pharmacotherapy. If you look at the private hospital and newer molecules, how costly they are. And particularly in patients of cancers, in patients with a severe autoimmune disease, in patients with obscure infection, we are at a loss. Either it is not available or it is so costly beyond the reach of the people, common people. But I can say, in our practice, in autoimmune disease, it is because of your work, your discovery, your research, biosimilar has been accepted globally. And the biosimilars, we are using it, and this is accepted all over the world, and this is a money saver for the long-term disease where there is no cure, but only we can manage. So obviously there are certain issues which still left out, and in our practice, on one side we are greatly benefited, but some patients cannot afford it. Now the question has come. Even National Medical Council has sent a gazette about the use of generics. It is a formidable task to use the generic medicine in private practice or in the hospital even. But still, it is one of the important steps. But it has got certain lacunae. How sure you are maintaining the quality? Then on one side you are saving money at the cost of the people. A time may come if we go into this, one group of people who are they use the trade names. On the other side of the people, generic names with a doubtful quality. I do know there are some researches about the comparative study of the trade name, trade drugs and the generic drugs, and blood concentration was found to be in order. But these are very few. So we have got limitation. But if West or developed country can use the generic name, why don't you use this? Why don't you improve the quality of drugs uniformly? There should be some kind of homogeneity than heterogeneity to offer the best quality cover. All the time we talk about the accessibility. All the time we talk about affordability. And at the same time, we are having a dubious standard for the different kinds of. Who knows that what kind of generic drugs have got the high quality comparable to the trade name. So there will be in a divisive policy, I think it needs to be looked into, but at a greater depth so that you can be practice. Otherwise, there may be rules and regulation. This rules and regulation came in 2014, if I remember correctly, but it is not operable. And now today, we have got the same problem, but it is a directive for all the doctors, be it a consultant or junior doctors, to write this. Even we have got a practice, clinical practice, where homeopath and alternative medicine are in vogue. So obviously, there will be a very mixed picture in the prescription. And more so, EHR are coming, electronic health records. And obviously, this is again a burden. How many people in the rural setup can go for the EHR for this kind of prescription in a dignified way as it is expected by National Medical Council? So obviously there are limitations, but thought is always highly regarded, but with some exceptions. So obviously in a situation like this, we are in a dilemma, but dilemma is there, and dilemma helps us to improve ourselves. And that is the way we can get better quality drugs for the betterment of the patient. Because on one side we need a personalized medicine, at the other side we need restoration without adverse effect. I think this cannot go together unless we have got definite step, uniformity, and both in the urban setting as well as rural setting. In that way, we can improve our quality. And lastly, I have got one small request. Clinical Pharmacology and Therapeutics have changed the name to CPT. Why they should not come in the practice of decision making, in clinical practice in the hospital? As for example, today's antibiotics, there is a crisis. Nothing coming in the pipeline, no new antibiotics. And we are the doctors who have created as monsters antibiotic resistance. So this antibiotic resistance, a regulation not only in papers but in action. So my request, or if we can make a headway as a combination of network between the clinicians and clinical pharmacologists and therapeutics. We also learn from you, you also learn for us how to adjust the drugs in the clinical setting, because all human beings are all different, they are not homogeneous. And you cannot predict what kind of reaction, what kind of action, and you cannot cure. In the chamber, on the clinic, Patient all the time ask, Dr. Babu, is it curable? Can you cure it? But how many diseases you can cure? Hardly 20%. 80% are manageable. And that's why the idea, so in the community discussion or community teaching also there, except malaria, typhoid, pneumonia, most of the disease are not amenable to cure. But this is a bad sound. Only thing when the doctor comes to the private clinic and hears from a doctor, I cannot cure your disease, it is a baffling. He might change the doctor or change the pattern of the question. So obviously these are some of the limitations, and my own interest, I do not know whether it will happen in my lifetime, but there is a network between me and yourself, and we have a network of knowledge, interaction. You correct me, I will correct you. I may be knowing the human being, you may be knowing the chemicals, what we are administering. So I think for betterment, one day we can shine that all the clinical pharmacologists has taken some degree of responsibility for taking clinical decision and correcting ourselves so that we can avoid adverse effect as much as possible. We can avoid drug resistance, which is happening, and these are all costly complications in our lifetime. I think in your conference there will be threadbare discussion, but it must be combined with some clinical decision making, and what are the shortcomings, can we plug some of them so that we can make a better globe, better doctor, better patients and better situation. Thank you all for your kind success and all your efforts to make the second annual conference in Calcutta a really glorious one. Thanks to Tripathi.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your deep insights on what the expectations are from our discipline from a clinician's perspective. Next, I would like to invite Professor Jyotirmoy Pal, sir, to speak a few words.
Professor Santanu Tripathi, organizing chairman of this conference, Professor Sukumar Mukherjee, our teacher, mentor, Dr. Shambhu Samarjar, organizing secretary, and all the dignitaries in the dais, my friends, students. It is really a privilege to be in the inaugural dais of National Conference of Clinical Pharmacology. My presence and presence of Professor Sukumar Mukherjee, we belong to the physicians community, I don't think is odd. Rather than it is quite significant, because there is a now ongoing debate, clinical pharmacology, whether it is more closer to pharmacology or more closer to clinical medicine. So, as has said very rightly in our student days, pharmacology means class of Professor Madan Das, stand up, what is the dose, side effect, if you cannot, he will scold you. So it was like our nightmare, basically. But in the next 30 years, the scenario has changed. The domain and extent of the clinical pharmacology, now something different. That now Dr. Samazdar, very closely working with me, he knows very well. In our medicine conferences, every time we keep a session on clinical pharmacology, because I can give you why. For the physicians, now this subject is more important to physicians rather than traditional pharmacologists. Because I give just one statistics, just now coming from Haldia, there is a geriatric medicine program, and there was a discussion on geriatric medicine, that one data, 30% hospital admission of a geriatric patients are due to the side effects, not due to the disease itself. So proper application of the drugs, its timing, its dosing, because now we are physicians with patients have a multiple comorbidity. So polypharmacy is not is a very common nowadays to the physicians. And also when we are dealing with a patient with multiple comorbidity, particularly in the geriatric population, which is the percentage is ever increasing, may reach to 30% in as predicted in 2050. So drug dosing and drug spacing, drugs timing, the understanding of the drug interaction is very important for the physician. Otherwise, not only the patient will not get the desired effect, also will suffer from so many side effects and will be admitted in the hospital and even can lose life. So understanding of the clinical pharmacology, it should be the bread and butter in the coming days to the practicing physician. That is why I feel this clinical pharmacology, Sir was telling, it is not growing. I think you should move more, do more conferences with the physicians, maybe physician internists, maybe with surgeons, with the gynecologists, and in that way it can only grow. And in last week we have a program, Dr. Samaj, students had participated, we kept a session on OSCE, different type of competition on the clinical pharmacology. He has conducted very successfully, and our PGs, they participated in a large number. So now I think clinical pharmacology is basically the in between clinical medicine and pharmacology, more closer to the clinical medicine. And there is definitely a demand from many of you that in our Association of Physicians India, the largest organization, whether clinical pharmacologists can be the life member. Till now, as per constitution, they are the associate member. But definitely I got some application and some request. Now our constitution committee is working. In the next meeting, definitely I will put forward. Let us see what I can do. And my personal feeling, it should be included as a life member, because I feel like clinical hematology, the cardiology, nephrology, clinical pharmacology, it should be an integral part of clinical medicine. Recently we are developing one book, Diginar, by the JP Brothers. 30th September book will be launched for the PG student. A significant portion we have kept for the clinical pharmacology. And Shambho is the section leader of this section. I think he has involved, I don't know whether many of you, this is a large section, probably for all over India. I told him to include the many clinical pharmacologists. Probably he has done it. So I hope this is the way the clinical pharmacologist needs physician. I think more the physician needs clinical pharmacologist. So I think clinical pharmacology and internist will proceed further, go together, will go hand by hand, and the new domain will start, and the physicians can do the best prescription, patients can get the best benefit. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspirational thoughts. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Arup Chattopadhyay, sir, to speak a few words on this occasion.
Respected guests, honorable respected dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, all the respected guests and delegates on the present on the other side of the member. I represent CDSCO, who is the National Regulatory Authority in India. As a part of our job in the CDSCO, we are engaged in the regulation of trial, various stages of clinical trials, starting from the phase 1 to phase 3 to phase 3 and even the phase 4 clinical trial in the country. Also, in the during the approval process, we also we are engaged in the approval of various new drugs that is first introduced the first time in India. In this, during the approval processes of the drugs, there are various expert committees, subject expert committees in the various fields of the medicines, therapeutic categories. In these categories, we engage various experts from these various therapeutic categories. In these fields, there are always pharmacologist members, and it is mandatory for our meeting that there should be a pharmacologist present. At least there is a pharmacologist, and meeting should not be going on. There are also other engagement like PVPI, Pharmacovigilance Program of India, and the Signal Review Panel. From there is a important program for us where the side effects are being monitored by us, and important side effects even from the very old molecules are being reviewed, and the side effects whenever their signals are being side effect signals are being generated, these are being alerted to the media, to the and in these various panels and expert committees, there are always the pharmacologists are members, and we are always reach out to the pharmacologists, friends, or doctors and friends, or for these valuable inputs. We also have a serious adverse event or a casual death analysis committee. India is the only committee, only country in the world where there is a compensation for serious adverse event or death during the clinical trial. If there is a serious adverse event that occurs during clinical trial or death, that needs to be reported to the regulator by ethics committee and principal investigator, and that casualty is being analyzed. And if it is analyzed by a committee, and that if that death or serious adverse event is being reported to be linked to that trial or study drug, there is a formula for compensation, and by calculating that formula, a compensation is being given to the family member of that trial participant, and that trial participant is that compensation is in maximum compensation is in around 80 lakhs. Dr. Tripathi, Professor Tripathi is a member of our various expert committees from the ACPI committee and the our PPPI committee also, I think. So in this various also we have various GCP inspection, the clinical trial, ongoing clinical trials, we conduct inspections, on-site inspections. In these on-site inspections we need experts from the concerned fields. So we reach out to the experts, pharmacologists, experts from the therapeutic experts from the respective fields, and during the inspection of the trial site, we take their help. So as a regulator, since we do not have expertise in all the fields, we have limited expertise. We always take help of the we are very much indebted to the help of the pharmacologist help and other therapeutic expert from the other therapeutic experts. So this is my great pleasure to be a part of this gathering, and I am honored to be here. So I feel honored, and I congratulate for this gathering. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out to be among us today. Next, I invite Major Dr. Abhijit Chakraborty, sir, to speak a few words on the occasion.
Good evening to the dignitaries on the stage and my friends sitting on the auditorium, and welcome to the new oncology block, or what we call the D block of our hospital. This has been constructed and finished just a month back, freshly inaugurated, and still we are on the job of completing this building. And if I'm not wrong, this is the first conference being organized in this auditorium. And we have no hesitation in sharing our resources with Dr. Tripathi, who is a valued member of our institutional ethics committee and keeps on guiding our clinical research. I saw your theme, and I just make a small comment on your theme, that relevance you have, impact you have started making, but then the challenge that lies in front of you to give you visibility. I will take a minute to recount one incident. But I am from the armed forces background, and one small incident that was Kargil war, where we lost a good number of our soldiers, and many of them bled to death. So we decided that in future we have to stop this undesirable death or unwanted death that happened from uncontrolled bleeding. So we looked out and we found out that the American Army had already initiated a bandage called a Chitosan bandage, which immediately can stop or prevent hemorrhage, particularly of the limbs. This is a bandage which is created out of a particular product called Chitosan, which is found in a sea crustacean shell. And we were given the task of developing this bandage, and I was one of the project team members. We procured Chitosan from the United States Army. We went into CDRI Lucknow. We tried to develop this bandage, but we couldn't go beyond the animal study model. Neither could we develop this model, this bandage, nor could you afford it, nor could you purchase it. The point I'm trying to make is that you are sitting in the oncology block, and as Professor Mukherjee just now told us, that affordable care. Now that's the challenge. How do we provide safe, rational, affordable care to the patients who are coming to this block to take oncology services? That's, if you can, participate in drug trials, clinical research, rational use of medicines, safety, medication safety of care at your chemotherapy daycare centers. Possibly that's when your specialty will get the visibility that you richly deserve. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Next, it is my privilege to invite Dr. Satyavrata Acharya, sir, to speak a few words. I'll be handing over the mic to you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling me here the dais to speak few words. I am a basic pharmacologist. So as I heard now that during the last 30 years, the method of teaching of pharmacology used to be a bit different. The dose, stand up sort of thing. But nowadays, the method of teaching of pharmacology has grossly changed in most of the medical colleges. And the teachers try to emphasize on the pathophysiological basis of the use of the drugs. But in spite of all these efforts, what I feel is due to indiscriminate use of, or rather rampant use of medicines and gross occurrence of antibiotic resistance, and most important thing is unnecessarily multi-drug prescriptions. This scenario happens not in super specialty areas, but happens in the village-oriented or small towns. This I faced personally when I had the opportunity to work in telemedicine. I used to go there to the village for twice in a month and found there's a lot of folks, lot of even health center doctors, they use multiple medicines. There are 3 antibiotics, and use of the drugs which cause bronchoconstriction and produce hypertension, and used in hypertension, which is a side effect of bronchoconstriction. Patient is having bronchial asthma or COPD patient. This type of scenario happens in spite of this type of new method of teaching. Of course, this new method of teaching is not widely followed in all the medical colleges in India. But in this meeting and in this presence of the delegates, what I feel very important is, as a clinical pharmacologist, you have the responsibility and commitment to the society to ensure that evidence-based use of medicine, which is lacking these days. If you go to the ordinary ordinary practitioners, or in the village-oriented place, they use multiple drugs. There are at least 10 drugs for a particular disease, no basis. This is the scenario. So it is, I think, primarily the responsibility of the clinical pharmacologist to ensure that the evidence-based use of medicines in different disease conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And finally, I would request Dr. Manjunath Samajda, the Organizing Secretary of ACPICon, to speak a few words.
Thank you, the respected dignitaries on the dais, Professor Melvin George, Professor in Clinical Medicine, Dr. Sukumar Mukherjee sir, Professor Jyotirmoy Pal, Dr. Arup Chattopadhyay, Major Dr. Abhijit Chakraborty, Dr. Satyabroto Acharya sir, and my mentor, my guide, Professor Santanu Tripathi sir, and the respected delegates who are off the dais. So, when we start our daily prayers, offerings to God, specifically the Purushottam Narayan, so we often use one mantra, that is Om Sahasra Sirsa Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad Sabhumi Vishwato Vrittva Attatishta Dasangulam. So this is a very important slok from Rig Veda. And what is the meaning of that? I had just translated it in Google and I get the meaning. The Supreme Being has 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 feet, pervading the universe on all sides. He lay beyond it to the extent of 10 fingers. So generally in a spiritual context, this is everything, but beyond this, that means beyond everything, they are telling the uniform God is like that. I believe I am really fortunate that I belongs to one speciality which also have that Sahasraksha, Sahasrapad, the thousands of dimensions, thousands of paths one can go from this particular discipline. It could be regulatory perspective, as our respected Dr. Arup Chattopadhyay was mentioning. Our Melvin George sir was mentioning about the research possibility, and also Dr. Abhijit Chakraborty was mentioning about that. And of course, Dr. Satyabroto Acharya sir was a veterinarian academician, also mentioning the importance of clinical pharmacology in building doctors, in building physicians to treat crores of populations. So that is important. Again, another aspect which was touched beautifully by Professor Sukumar Mukherjee sir and Professor Jyotirmoy Pal sir, the direct patient care, what we can provide from this discipline by reconciling the therapeutics with the help, with the conjointly with the clinicians. So that is another important aspect. So there are multi-dimensional facets we have to serve community, and we are really proud to belong to this type of community. I am really thankful to all the respected faculties who are present today, who are the dignitaries who came today. As Professor Jyotirmoy Pal was mentioning, already in the API, there are multiple projects are ongoing to improve the therapeutics knowledge. And very recently we had contributed with more than 45 OSCEs with the help of different clinical pharmacology departments, starting from Nizam, starting from KEM Mumbai, also JIPMAR Pondicherry. Their clinical pharmacology department had helped us to build OSCE questions for our MD medicine postgraduates. So it is a really great effort by Professor Jyotirmoy Pal sir to integrate clinical pharmacology in clinical medicine. So really thankful to sir. At the onset, I also thankful to my department, that is Department of Clinical and Experimental Pharmacology at School of Tropical Medicine. Professor Santanu Munshi is the current head, sir is there, and Dr. Chiranjeev Bakchi is there with all our colleagues, our DM residents who had helped us to make this event successful. And also I am thankful to Medica, specifically Mr. Lahiri, Dr. Abhijit Chakraborty for giving us this opportunity. I am really thankful to InnovoCare Health of Solution who had helped us entirely during this preparation. And I want to mention R&R. You know, the R&R is a very famous movie now. Really, this R&R, this Rohan Tripathi and Ranodip, these two R helped me a lot in to make this event most probably it is going to be successful. There are multiple flaws, I accept that, and that flaws are due to my own, I am taking that in my shoulder. There will be more flaws also. Please forgive us for that. Thank you. Hope you will enjoy the next 1.5 days with different types of tests in this academic fest. So thank you once again.
So we shall end the inauguration ceremony with the singing of the national anthem. I would request all our participants and distinguished guests to please stand up for the national anthem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sambhu. जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल जमुना गंगा उत्कल जलधि तरंग तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
So with this we come to the end of the inauguration ceremony. Thank you all.